Today, our focus in this lesson will be on HTML styles. And when we speak about style, you always hear the acronym CSS comes into play. But really and truly, what does CSS stands for? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. Now, when you would have created your web page using HTML various tags and attributes, of course, you would want to add style to how those information that you would use your HTML tags and attributes to create, how would they appear on the screen? Is it that they're going to have a color on it? Is it going to have a border? Is it that you're going to make some changes to the picture, how the text appear on your screen? You would use your cascading style sheet. And really and truly, CSS saves a lot of work. It can control the layout of multiple web pages all at once. And of course, with that said, we will be looking at the three types of CSS, three types of cascading style sheets, the three types that you can use to style your web page or your web pages. As was mentioned earlier, using CSS, you can create simple CSS code that controls multiple web pages as to how they appear in your browser. Now, cascading style sheet, as I mentioned before, is used to format the layout of a web page. With CSS, you can control the color, you can control the font, you can control the size of the text, the spacing between elements, meaning how elements are positioned and laid out. What background image or background colors are to be used, different displays for different device and screen size, and a whole lot more. So that is just to explain further what I mentioned earlier regarding what your cascading style sheet can do for you and how it can enhance the appearance of your web page and your web pages. Like I mentioned earlier, that there are three types or three ways of using or adding your CSS to your HTML document. One is your inline, two your internal, and three your external. Now, let's look into it into more details. When we speak of CSS being inline, simply mean by using the style attribute inside HTML elements. When we speak of CSS internal, by using the style element in the head section. So therefore, if you're going to use internal styling, you will find all those styling for internal inside of the head tag of your HTML code. Next, we have CSS external. And what do we mean by CSS external? By using a link element to link to an external CSS file. Simply mean you would have created your HTML document, and now you want to style that HTML document. You will now create an independent page that will have all those styling that is going to link to your HTML file. So that's, in this case, we use a link to basically style that page or pages. Now let's look at an example of when we speak of inline CSS. Now, you will be familiar with your H1 heading already. So before, we would have H1 and we will have the heading to be a blue heading and we close our H1. But because we are using inline CSS, you realize that the style is inline of that exact element or that attribute, that tag that we want to style. So we're simply saying a blue heading, we want to style that text to be of a color blue. So simply when you run it in your browser, a blue heading should be in blue, color blue. And how do you do that? Inside of your open H1 tag, you have your style equal open double quotation, and you have the key term color followed by colon and the color of your choice that you would like to use, followed by your semicolon and your closing double quotation. Likewise, you could also color your paragraph as well. P stands for paragraph, and we're simply saying that we want the text, a red paragraph, to be of the color red. Now let's look at it to see what is really taking place. So here on the left is your code, and on the right is the display based on what the code wants to do. So of course you're seeing a blue heading over here, so therefore this styling right here allows it to have a blue heading, and below the paragraph a red paragraph is being displayed as well. So that is one example of how you use your inline CSS. And of course you could choose various tags. Even when you look at your we created tables before, we created forms, you could simply add your style and put in your necessary coding that you need to basically style your respective area of your web page. Now let's turn our attention to internal CSS. Well, an internal CSS is used to define a style for a single HTML page. So therefore you would not have your inlines. Let's say you have more than one HTML page, and if you should put your style in one page, it will only have effect on that page which that you added it to. Therefore you have to add it to each HTML page if you want to style it that way. Alright, so an internal CSS is defined in the head section of your HTML page within a style element. So within the head section of your HTML, you will have an open style, and then you have your respective coding that you want to add, or the style you want to add to your HTML document, and then you will close that style tag inside of your head section of your HTML. Now, to shed some more light on this, let's look at an example. Here we have the same information, H1, and we have this is a heading, and paragraph, we have this is a paragraph. You realize there is no styling inside these, no style inside these respective tags. However, if you look at the head section, of the document, you realize that we have our open head and we have our open style tag, and we say body, and we're saying that open curly bracket, and we say they want the background color of the body to be powder blue. Here H1, we say we want the color of H1 to be blue. Here we have P representing paragraph, and we're open curly bracket, and we're saying we want the color of the paragraph to be red. And afterwards, we close the open style tag, and of course, it is inside of our head tag as well. But let's look at this code to see what really takes place with this code. Well, again, over here on the left, you are seeing the code, and the right, you're seeing the display of what the code would have created. So you're realizing that the background color is powder blue. Let's say we want it to be gray. You realize that the background color is gray. Alright? So that is how you go about using your internal CSS, and I hide that section right now. So you realize the style, open style to closing style is inside of your head section of your HTML code, and it basically connects to what we have here, because here we have body, and we're simply saying we want the body section to be gray, and we say we want the H1 to be blue, and we're seeing it in blue. We want a paragraph to be red, and you see it being red. So we will pause here for this lesson as we focus on CSS. We look at the three types of CSS, namely inline, internal, and external. We look into detail into our inline CSS and our internal CSS. Next lesson, we'll be focusing on our external CSS. Once more, I encourage, if you're going to be good at your coding, you simply need to practice. And please do remember to subscribe, like, and share this link with a friend that this lesson might be useful to them. Until then, keep safe.